Hi folks, how you doing? This is Iqbal with NVIDIA Daily Analysis. In this video, we'll discuss NVIDIA stock price movement for today and try to make an assessment for early next week using technical charts, fundamentals, forward PE, and comparative data analysis. We'll also take a look at SMCI and AMD stock. Now, let's get started. You see NVIDIA stock chart for today. NVIDIA opened at 127.36. It made a high 128.85. It made a low 125.68 and it closed at 125.83. That is 1.91% down. And after hours, still down 0.45%. And this is in line with my previous expectation that I expected that today there is a possibility that NVIDIA may go down. Now, moving on, last 5 days, NVIDIA is still up 1.04%, 1 month 2.77% up, and last 6 months still have 156% up. Now, let's take a look forward P for NVIDIA, SMCI, and AMD. I updated the latest forward P for these four stocks in this table. As of now, NVIDIA is at 46.60. That is comparatively higher than last week closing. That was 45.76. And if you take a look last 6 week of average, that's 43.16. So compared with last 6 weeks of average, NVIDIA forward PE is about 2 or 3% high. At this forward PE, I do not consider it's too high. NVIDIA can move in either direction as long as the forward P is not above 50. So as I mentioned last week as well, that if forward P goes above 50 for NVIDIA, then NVIDIA enters in a danger zone. Palantir 82.52, that is much higher than the last 5 weeks of average. SMCI 27.12, if you compare with the last 6 week of average, 23.10, and this tells me that at this point SMCI forward P is comparatively higher than last 6 weeks of average, but it still is below 30. So in my understanding, still there's a room for SMCI to go further up next week. AMD 49.54. So this is comparatively higher than the average of the last 6 weeks of forward PE. Now let's take a look historical NVIDIA stock split data. So we ended week number 4 after the split became effective. So at this point, NVIDIA ended 32.52% up from the announcement date. And if we compare with the last stock split cycle, NVIDIA ended 27.05% in week 4 from the announcement date. So comparatively higher, but not too high from the last week closing. That was 30.11 versus 32.52. But if you take a look, week number 5 from the effective date, NVIDIA made a big jump in the last stock split cycle. So, based on the stock split data, we should expect some kind of upside in NVIDIA stock. But at the same time, we should also take a look how NVIDIA behaved in the last quarter. Let's take a look. So this chart shows the cumulative percentage increase for last quarter. So you take a look. In the second month after the earnings in the last quarter, NVIDIA started going down. By the end of the second month, NVIDIA was here, probably about 5 to 10% down from the month 1. So this data suggests that, in the second month, we should expect some slowdown or some downside on the NVIDIA stock price. So I have put both data in front of you. Now you can make your own judgment what's going to happen next week. But if I make an assessment, probably next week, I'm not expecting NVIDIA to go too high, but at the same time, I'm expecting that next week NVIDIA should close higher than this week closing price. Now, let's take a look technical charts. You see 90-day hourly interval chart for NVIDIA and also the MACD chart. So if you take a look MACD, I do not see very strong momentum on either side. But today we see some downward pressure on Nvidia, but that pressure is not very strong. So on Monday, I'm expecting Nvidia to move sideways. I'm not expecting a big upside or downside on Monday. Let's take a look at Bollinger Bands. You see Bollinger Bands on your screen. So Bollinger Band, the upper band and the lower band, started expanding, and that's a good sign since yesterday. But today you see some contraction and it's going to be flat. So this tells that Bollinger Band is also not telling much what's gonna happen Monday. But one good thing from the Bollinger Band is the curve is not moving down as we expected somewhere here. When the Bollinger Band curve started going down, we see some downward strong momentum on Nvidia, but it doesn't look like that's happening at this point. Now let's take a look at Fibonacci levels. So you see Fibonacci levels on your screen. The highest point is 140.56 and the lowest point is selected is 93.84. And as I mentioned early this week that I was not expecting Nvidia to break 117 support level sometime this week. So by the end of this week, we see that Nvidia was not able to break 117, but still it managed to remain above 122 support level. And Nvidia closed between 122 and 129 this week, and that's what I expected early this week. And there is a possibility that Nvidia might test or break 129 support level next week. Now let's take a look news regarding Nvidia. Let's take a look this one that says that this Nvidia analyst is no longer bullish. Here are top downgrades for Friday. So this analyst downgraded Nvidia from buy to neutral, but that's his opinion. Let's take a look more news regarding Nvidia. So most of the news today talks about the downgrade Nvidia received from this analyst, that is from New Street. So another one that says Nvidia stock gets downgraded, it's from the same analyst. And also here you see that Nvidia shares are trading lower after New Street Research downgraded the stock from buy to neutral. And again this one, New Street downgrades Nvidia to neutral from buy. So now this one that says that Nasdaq S&P 500 rise to new highs in midday Friday trading after June jobs report. So remember, unemployment rate on employment data was due today. So let's take a look. What are those numbers? So regarding the unemployment rate, it went up higher than the forecast, 4.1% versus 4%. So that's a good sign because the weaker job market will help inflation go down. So weaker job market supports the notion that inflation will go down, and that would expedite the timing of the rate cut. And this was also mentioned in the FOMC meeting minutes. I went over with you guys day before yesterday. Now let's take a look non-farm payroll data. So non-farm payroll came higher than expected. It came 206K versus 191K. And this is in line with my expectation as well. I was expecting non-farm payrolls to come higher than the forecast, and also the unemployment rate I was expecting to come higher than the forecast. So I am good on those two data points. So combining those two data, meaning non-farm payrolls and the unemployment rate, it's a mixed picture. So we cannot conclude that these two data will cause inflation to go further down. So now moving back to the Nvidia news. So apart from these news, I do not see anything different today. Now let's take a look other AI stock. So as you see that most of the AI stocks closed positive today. The highest positive change is in SoundHound that is 6.62%. And that makes sense because in last few days we saw much decline on SoundHound. Let's take a look. You see that in last 1 month, SoundHound is down about 15.86%. So it was a good recovery today. Palantir also up 5.34%. It's way too high at this point. I'm not gonna touch Palantir. AMD 4.88% up. Apple 2.36% up, Microsoft 1.47% up, Amazon 1.22% up, SMCI, Avago, and NVIDIA all negative today. I guess that's all about NVIDIA analysis and assessment for early next week. I hope you liked the video. Thank you so much for watching. Talk to you more tomorrow. Take care.